Hello and welcome back to the farm. So you have to excuse the road noise. It's a little warm today and I got the door open in the shop. So this is a Hydrogear PG, and you can read the rest of the number, but most places are going to refer to it as a PG series pump. This is out of a Toro Z Master. It tore up the drive motor, which was a Parker in this case. These are used on all sorts of different applications and also different riding mowers, zero turns, a whole bunch of stuff is what I'm getting at. Anyway, so what we put in underneath this plate here, there's a thrust bearing, which I'll show you what that looks like on the bench here in a moment. There's a spring and a spacer, and then over here is the piston pump and the rotary pump, which I still have to get cleaned up. So this is a 53502 thrust bearing, which I don't know if you'll be able to see that. I'm trying to get a good shot of it there. Anyway, the new one specifically says put this on the non-finger side of the pump. So this side down in my case. These are different thicknesses, and I would assume that because this is where you want the fingers to ride, and there's obviously different thickness and a little bit different width. I believe they do that intentionally. This one does not have the words written on it, but the reason we are replacing it is if you look at these balls, specifically this one here, and there's others, but it ate some metal, and as you can see, that ball is pretty dinged up. What happened, whenever the drive gave up, metal came up, got into the pump, stuck the relief valve shut, overpressured the pump, blew the spring out of the backside of the seal, and of course ran metal through all the bearings. There's the front roller bearing, 6203. I put Timkins in just because that's what I could get. I don't know what these are, but they worked until they got metal in them, so they must have been something halfway decent. So moving on from that, over here is the piston pump or finger pump. And if you're not familiar with that, inside of here there's a little disc that'll fall out of there. Now they get a little sticky with the oil down in the bottom. It's a flat bottom hole with a flat disc. Anyway, that being said, there's a spring, obviously. It's just down into this bore. The bore to the piston is very tight tolerance, and whenever the piston's pushed down, there's oil in the cup side. As the piston moves, that pushes the oil and forces it from there. And remember, that's against, those fingers right against this piece. So the opening is up in this configuration, which then forces oil through either of these two ports. One will be for forward, one will be for reverse. That is dictated by which direction this is leaning. Now, that being said, when you have one of these that does go grenade, or whenever the drive goes grenade and runs metal through everything, it is imperative that you clean everything very, very thoroughly. One little piece of metal run back through your brand new bearings, well, your bearings won't be brand new and good anymore. You'll get to do this once again. So I'm going to continue cleaning things up here. I did replace this gasket already, the seal and the bearing obviously on the underside, and this thrust bearing on the top side. I'm using just a little bit of assembly lube. I think that's a good idea when you put stuff back together. And of course this will get completely filled with oil before we try to run it. And again, part number for that thrust bearing right there. It did come from a Hydrogear. It was actually fairly reasonable, believe it or not. So I'll bring you back whenever we're ready to put the top side together and moving on from that. And here's a shot of me. We got this thing put back in here. Got the pump, at least the finger pump, put back in. Got some oil down on it. The cover plate, obviously, that side goes up. That's what it says. Now over here, this is just a gear pump. So that little D shape in here rides over the D shape of this shaft right here. That causes that to spin. Then it causes this to rotate. And in between, I'll just set that in there, oil gets forced as this rotates from, being in this position, there'd be oil in there. Over here, it is pushed through the through the holes from feed to pressure side. And all that does is circulates oil through the pump and helps to keep things cool, and also helps keep the piston pump adequately supplied. I'll go ahead and get all this stuff lined back up on here, and I'll bring you back before I put the bolts in. So what you're looking at here is the pump just loosely put together. Actually, you can still see the gap in there. I just have the bolts put in just finger tight and pushed down just enough to hold everything together. So on the back side where the circulating pump goes, you put the ball in. That's just a check ball. There's a spring that goes on top of that. And then obviously now we need our oil pump. Pretty simple. You just line up the star onto the D shape. And then of course the outer ring will line up. And since there's a previous mark here, we can kind of eyeball and line that up on its wear mark. And then the back cap, you line up the recess hole with the spring and the inner bore with the oil pump. And just like that, the holes are lined up to put our screws in. Tighten everything up and we're set to go. I guess I'll give you a little explanation of how this operates before we conclude here. So reservoir supply goes here. One or the other of these is going to be for forward or for reverse. Each machine is going to be a little different. You got A and B ports. They'll be listed in the manual of which way to hook the hoses up. And if you get it wrong, switch them. This port up here comes out of the relief and the circulating pump. And what that does is this goes to a filter in this configuration and then back to the reservoir. This piece over here, this is a bypass. And if you were going to tow this or push it, you would crack this free, because a hydraulic pump, in this case the wheel drive, is a hydraulic motor. A hydraulic pump and a hydraulic motor are essentially one and the same. A hydraulic motor is powered by hydraulic fluid. A hydraulic pump is powered externally to move hydraulic fluid. So, hope that helps somebody out seeing the exploded view. And I'll attach a shot of the exploded view from the manual before I end the video. But thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Stay tuned for more broken stuff like this.